Stories from the Redmond Barrens, Episode 1, Shadows in the Rain. The team assembled in a decrepit safe house near Touristville, just a few kilometers from Hollywood Correctional. The job was clear, but dangerous. Breakout Miles Data Jack Crane, a former Renraku sysadmin turned informant who supposedly had intel on a cutting-edge black project. The Johnson insisted he had to come out alive, no exceptions. The team consisted of Razor, a street samurai with reflexes faster than a Corp Decker's VPN. Cold and efficient, she was muscle and execution rolled into one. Wisp, an elven mage with a penchant for illusions and banter. His cocky demeanor masked deadly precision with spellcraft. Circuit, a Decker specializing in brute force hacks and cracking Corp ice. She could make a drone army dance if given time. Reaper, the face and leader of the group. A fixer with a silver tongue and a mysterious past. He brokered this job and claimed to have personal reasons for seeing it through. With their gear loaded into a beat-up bulldog van, the team reviewed their plan. Circuit would breach the prison's archaic matrix defenses. Wisp would disable magical barriers, and Razor and Reaper would handle extraction. But tension simmered under the surface. Reaper's insistence on taking the job had raised eyebrows. Razor had already voiced her concerns. It's too clean, too good to be true. Who in their right mind hires Shadowrunners for a job like this? The question hung heavy as they rolled out. Hollywood Correctional loomed like a rotting carcass in the heart of the Redmond Barrens. The building's cracked ferrocrete walls bore the scars of decades-old gang wars and failed escape attempts. Graffiti scrawled over layers of grime and old blood. Flickering halogen floodlights cast stark shadows against the mist. Rising from the rain-slick streets, razor wire coils crowned every wall, gleaming faintly under the neon haze of the nearby sprawl. The Barrens itself was alive with chaos. Burned-out vehicles and shattered glass lined the streets leading to the prison, where gangers prowled like wolves. Their eyes lingered on the team's bulldog van as it rumbled past, its battered exterior doing little to hide its fresh wheels. The air stank of ozone, trash fires, and the sharp tang of industrial runoff. Hollywood Correctional's defenses were a mix of desperation and brutality. Automated turrets, relics of an earlier era, tracked motion with erratic precision. Matrix nodes buzzed faintly, their aged housings patched together with Corp-issued quick fixes. Spirit wards shimmered faintly over the perimeter, their mana signatures faint but foreboding. And above it all, high-frequency drone patrols circled like mechanical vultures, their searchlights slicing through the smog. The prison's interior would be no better. Leaking pipes, malfunctioning HVAC systems, and dim lighting that left too much to the imagination. Yet, amid the decay, the scent of corporate overreach lingered. Expensive surveillance cameras, glinting biometric scanners, and the occasional glistening white drone, fresh off the assembly line. The team decided on a two-pronged approach, blending deception with brute force to match their skill sets and the decayed, unpredictable nature of Hollywood Correctional. Wisp crafted an illusion of a gang skirmish erupting near the main entrance. Spectral figures armed with AKs and Molotovs appeared out of thin air, engaging in a chaotic firefight. The illusion was enhanced by the sound of gunfire and explosions, convincing enough to draw the prison's aging automated turrets into action. Guard patrols were pulled away from key areas as they scrambled to figure out why their sensors were pinging multiple breaches. While the ruse caused a distraction, Wisp cloaked Razor and Reaper in a layer of magical invisibility, allowing them to approach the wall undetected. Circuit stayed in the Bulldog van parked a few blocks away, plugging into a makeshift rig with enough power to fry her brain if something went wrong. Her target, the prison's decrepit grid. Once inside, she disabled the perimeter's motion sensors and jammed the turrets, targeting protocols. Only the illusions remained on their radar. Circuit also unlocked an access hatch, leading to an underground utility corridor that ran into the prison's lower levels. Wisp dropped the illusion the moment Razor and Reaper slipped into the utility hatch. Now it was all about speed. The corridor was dank and narrow, lit by flickering emergency lights. Steam hissed from broken pipes, and the sound of distant shouting echoed through the vents. Razor led the way, her cybernetic reflexes on edge. Reaper followed, his hand resting on the grip of his Predator IV, his eyes scanning every shadow. Circuit's voice crackled over their comms. "Okay, you're clear to move. You've got 10 minutes before they figure out the systems are offline. Don't make me come in there." The air inside the utility corridor was heavy, saturated with the stink of mildew and rust. Razor's enhanced optics scanned ahead, the dim light doing little to hide the cracks in the walls or the scuttling of oversized rats. A faint sound pricked her augmented hearing. Footsteps, 2 sets, coming from around a corner up ahead. "Patrol," Razor whispered, raising a clenched fist to halt Reaper behind her. Reaper adjusted his grip on his Predator IV, leaning closer. "2?" She nodded, her voice low. "Soft souls, light, foot soldiers, not drones. Could be packing heat." Reaper activated his sub-vocal mic. "Circuit, you picking this up?" "Yeah," Circuit replied, her voice edged with tension. 2 guards, moving slow. "They're checking the grid in this section. Guess someone noticed the hiccup I caused. You've got about 60 seconds before they round that corner." Razor tapped the hilt of her katana, considering their options. They couldn't risk the guards raising the alarm, but any noise might draw reinforcements. Reaper, ever the pragmatist, motioned for her to stand down. "I've got this," he mouthed, slipping into the shadows with a practiced ease. The guards appeared seconds later, dressed in mismatched body armor and wielding surplus Ares Predator pistols. They looked more like rent-a-cops than professionals. Their conversation was a mix of boredom and paranoia. "Telling you the turrets are acting up again. Damn thing nearly shot me last week." "Could be another glitch," the other guard replied, his voice weary. "Or another gang trying their luck." As they moved closer, Reaper struck. With a blur of motion, he slipped behind the trailing guard and clamped a hand over his mouth. Predator 4 hissed faintly as it discharged, silenced, and the guard crumpled. The second guard spun, his gun raising, but Razor was already moving. In a flash of steel, her katana arced through the air, slicing the weapon in half before she delivered a sharp blow to the man's temple with the hilt. He hit the ground with a thud, unconscious. Reaper straightened, wiping his gloves clean on the fallen guard's uniform. "Textbook," he muttered, his voice almost approving. "Next time, warn me before you play ninja." Razor snapped, sheathing her blade. "We're burning time." As they dragged the unconscious guard into the shadows, Reaper knelt to search the man's vest pockets. He pulled out a comlink, but instead of tossing it aside like usual, he hesitated, his thumb hovering over the screen. "Something interesting?" Razor asked, her tone suspicious. "Just making sure he's not calling for backup," Reaper said smoothly, but the way he pocketed the comlink was far too casual. Razor's eyes narrowed. Let's move. Circuit's countdown doesn't pause for sightseeing. Reaper flashed her a tight smile and fell in step. Behind his calm demeanor, there was something calculated in the way he lingered, as if he were weighing options Razor didn't have time to consider. The team navigated deeper into the bowels of Hollywood Correctional, their footsteps muffled by the damp grime coating the floor. Circuit's voice buzzed intermittently in their comms, directing them through the labyrinth of pipes and reinforced walls. "You're almost at the holding cells," she said. "Last door on the right. Be warned. I'm seeing some heat signatures nearby. Could be guards. Could be other prisoners. Stay sharp." Razor took point, her katana ready as they approached the heavy, reinforced door Circuit had unlocked for them. The stench of sweat and unwashed bodies grew stronger, and faint groans of pain echoed from behind the steel barrier. Reaper tapped the door control, and it slid open with a mechanical groan, revealing a small cell block lined with barred cages. "Data jack," Razor called out softly, her eyes scanning the cells. In the farthest corner, barely visible in the dim light, a figure stirred. Miles Crane was slumped against the wall, his arms shackled above his head. His face was a patchwork of bruises and dried blood, one eye swollen shut. His prison jumpsuit was torn, exposing a torso mottled with dark bruises and burns that hinted at the guard's idea of fun. "Drek," Reaper muttered, hurrying to the cell. "Miles Crane. Right. We're here to get you out." Crane groaned, his voice raspy and weak. Took you long enough. I was starting to think the Johnson left me to rot." Razor sized him up quickly. "He's in bad shape. Can you move?" "Not fast," Crane admitted, his words slurred. "But I'm not dying here." Reaper pulled a set of lockpicks from his jacket, expertly working on the cell door. "Don't worry, chummer. We'll get you patched up later. For now, stay quiet and stick close." The door clicked open, and Razor moved to support Crane, lifting him onto his feet. As Razor helped Crane toward the exit, the sound of boots echoed down the corridor. The team froze, listening intently as muffled voices grew louder. "Circuit," Reaper hissed into his mic. "Tell me you've got eyes on this." "Yeah," she replied, her voice tinged with panic. "5 guards coming your way, heavily armed. I can jam their comms, but I can't lock them out. You're gonna have to fight your way through." Wisp swore under his breath. "Sounds like the subtle approach is out." The guards stormed into view, rifles raised. They spotted the open cell and shouted an alarm before opening fire. The hallway lit up with muzzle flashes, and the acrid smell of cordite filled the air. Razor shoved Crane behind a corner, drawing her katana. "Stay down," she barked, before darting into the fray. Her blade flashed, deflecting bullets as she closed the distance. Wisp muttered an incantation, and a shimmering barrier materialized in front of Reaper and Crane, deflecting the initial volley of gunfire. "Buy me a minute, and I'll make these fraggers regret showing up," he growled. Reaper returned fire, methodical and precise, dropping one guard with a well-placed shot to the chest. The corridor became a storm of chaos as the team fought to protect their wounded target. The first wave of guards dropped swiftly, Razor's katana cutting through armor like paper, while Reaper's shots found their marks with cold precision. Wisp's spells twisted the light, creating shifting illusions that confused their attackers. For a moment, it seemed they might hold their ground. Then the reinforcements arrived. The corridor shook with the heavy thuds of boots, and the shrill whine of drone engines filled the air. A half-dozen prison enforcers, clad in heavier armor and wielding military-grade assault rifles, stormed into view. Behind them, hovered two combat drones, their dual-mounted machine guns spinning to life. "Circuit," Reaper growled into his comm. "What the frag is going on?" "Hang on," Circuit snapped. "I'm trying to..." Her voice cut out in a burst of static. "Drek," Wisp shouted, throwing up another barrier just as the drones opened fire. Bullets hammered the shimmering shield, cracks forming in its glowing surface. "I can't hold this forever." Razor darted back to Crane, dragging him into a recessed corner for cover. "This is getting ugly fast. We need a way out, now." Reaper tossed a grenade down the corridor, the explosion ripping through the first line of enforcers and shrouding the area in smoke. "Keep moving," he barked, firing blindly into the haze. Razor grabbed Crane and pushed forward, her katana slashing through the air to deflect stray rounds. Wisp followed, hurling a fireball that detonated against a drone, sending its shattered chassis crashing to the floor. The second drone, undeterred, unleashed a torrent of bullets that ripped through the barrier and chewed into the walls. Sparks flew as circuits and pipes exploded, spraying steam and debris into the air. From behind the team, another wave of guards appeared, cutting off their retreat. The Shadowrunners were now trapped between two heavily armed forces. Amid the chaos, Reaper fell back slightly, fumbling with the comlink he had taken from the guard earlier. Razor caught the movement, and her eyes narrowed. "What the hell are you doing?" she shouted over the gunfire. Reaper didn't answer. Instead, he tapped the comlink and barked a command into it. "This is Reaper. They're pinned in Corridor C. Move in and secure the target." The words sent a jolt through the team. "You son of a..." Razor started, but her words were drowned out as the rear doors slammed open, revealing another squad of enforcers, this time bearing the insignia of a private security corps. Reaper turned, his predator eye raised. "Sorry, chummers. This isn't personal. The Johnson wanted Crane, but the payday's better if I bring him in myself." The private security team pushed forward, guns blazing, as the guards from the prison redoubled their assault. The corridor was a cacophony of gunfire, explosions, and shouted commands. The corridor was pure chaos. Gunfire erupted from both ends, bullets ricocheting off walls and chewing through what little cover the team had. The air reeked of burnt ozone, blood, and the acrid tang of spent ammunition. Sparks flew from shattered light fixtures, casting the scene in frantic, strobing light. Razor's blade danced as she deflected a hail of bullets, her augmented reflexes the only thing keeping her alive. "We're fragged if we don't think of something fast," she shouted. Wisp, his mana reserves nearly drained, pressed his back against a wall, panting. "I'm tapped, Razor. One more spell, and I'm as good as dead." Crane coughed, blood flecking his lips. "You don't get it," he rasped. "This isn't about me, the Johnson. He's playing you." "What the hell are you talking about?" Razor snapped, pulling him behind cover as another drone unleashed a torrent of bullets. "Renraku Black Project," Crane wheezed. "He doesn't want me for intel. He wants me dead. I've got proof, files implicating him in Drek that'll make every corp in Seattle come gunning for him, but only if I get out alive." Razor's blood ran cold. The Johnson's insistence on Crane being brought out alive suddenly made sense. It wasn't for extraction. It was for execution. On the other side of the corridor, Reaper barked orders into the comlink, directing the private security forces closing in on the team. His face was a mask of cold determination, the kind of detachment that came from years of betrayal and survival in the shadows. "Give it up, Razor," Reaper shouted over the din. "Crane's dead weight, and you know it. Hand him over. and you might still walk out of here alive. Razor's eyes burned with fury. Frag you, Reaper. You sold us out. Reaper smirked, raising his Predator I-4. Business is business, chummer. You'd do the same if you were smart enough. Wisp clenched his fists, his veins glowing faintly as he pulled mana from the dregs of his reserves. If we're going down, let's make it one for the ages, he said, a wild grin on his face. With a guttural roar, he hurled a massive fireball down the corridor, engulfing the advancing prison guards in a searing inferno. The explosion rocked the building, sending chunks of ferrocrete raining down. Nice, Razor muttered, before turning to circuit over comms. If you can hear me, get this fragging grid offline. We're out of options. Static filled the line, but a faint reply came through. Working on it? Hold tight. The private security team moved in behind riot shields, their disciplined formation closing the gap. Razor moved to intercept, her katana flashing in deadly arcs. Sparks flew as the blade struck armor, and blood splattered as she carved through gaps in their defenses. Crane, propped against the wall, managed to pull a stolen sidearm from one of the fallen guards. His hand trembled as he fired, the shots going wide, but forcing one of the security officers to duck. Reaper used the chaos to close in on Razor, his Predator I-4 raised. Last chance, Razor. Drop the blade and walk away. She met his gaze, her lips curling into a snarl. You first. The standoff was broken by Crane's voice, hoarse but defiant. Reaper, you don't know what you're doing. The Johnson's going to burn you, too. These files don't just implicate him. They've got names, ops, the works. You're just loose ends. Reaper hesitated, his aim wavering for the first time. You really think he'll let you walk away after this? Crane pressed, blood dripping from his mouth. You're a liability now, just like me. The hesitation was all Razor needed. She lunged, her katana slicing through Reaper's gun arm. The weapon clattered to the ground as he staggered back, clutching the wound. Should have kept your mouth shut, Razor growled before delivering a brutal kick to his chest, sending him sprawling. With Reaper neutralized, the team was still hopelessly outnumbered. The drones buzzed ominously, their guns spinning up for another barrage. The guards regrouped, their advance relentless. Crane groaned, pulling a data chip from a hidden compartment in his belt. Take it. Upload it. Broadcast everything. He gasped, holding it out to Razor. She hesitated, then snatched the chip. Wisp, cover me! The mage, his body trembling from exertion, summoned a final wave of illusions to buy Razor a few precious seconds. She sprinted to a nearby terminal, jacked in, and uploaded the data. He-chip's contents hit the Matrix like a bomb. Renraku's dirtiest secrets, black ops, illegal experiments, high-profile betrayals, flooded Shadowrunner networks and news grids. The guards' comms buzzed with confusion as their chain of command disintegrated. Some even dropped their weapons, realizing they were now pawns in a much larger game. The drones powered down as Circuit finally regained control of the grid. You're clear, she said, her voice shaking. Get the hell out of there. Razor hauled Crane onto her shoulder, bloodied but alive, as Wisp pulled Reaper to his feet. He's coming with us, Wisp said. Payback later. The team limped out of Hollywood Correctional, battered but victorious, the rain washing away the blood and grime as sirens blared in the distance. The rain fell in sheets as the team made their way back to the safe house, their steps heavy with exhaustion. The neon lights of Redmond Barrens blurred against the darkness, casting long, jagged reflections across the rain-slick streets. Inside the crumbling warehouse that served as their temporary base, Razor leaned against a rusted pillar, her katana resting on her lap. Wisp was sprawled on a makeshift cot, his breathing shallow, mana burnout etched into his pale face. Circuit sat cross-legged, her deck open on her lap, silently scrolling through news feeds. Reaper, bruised and bound once more, glared from his corner, the fire in his eyes now tempered with the cold realization of his failure. Crane sat slumped in a chair, clutching his side where a hastily applied medkit stemmed the worst of his injuries. His voice was barely above a whisper. So, what now? You think we've changed anything? Made a difference? Razor didn't answer immediately. She stared out at the rain, her cybernetic eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. Finally, she spoke, her tone quiet but firm. We survived. That's the difference. Crane chuckled bitterly, wincing at the pain. Survived, huh? You think that matters to the Corps? They'll keep playing their games, chewing people up and spitting them out. People like me. People like you. Yeah, Wisp murmured from his cot. And people like the Johnson. He'll vanish into some corp-sanctioned hole, and another suit will take his place. Same game, different players. Circuit sighed, closing her deck with a soft click. Shadowrunners don't change the world, Crane. We just survive it. You wanted to burn the system down. That's cute. But the system doesn't burn. It adapts. The shadows were quiet for a moment, filled only with the faint hum of the city outside. Razor finally stood, sliding her katana into its sheath. You're right, she said, turning back to the group. Nothing's changed. The shadows are still the shadows. The Corps still run the world. And people like us will still take their dirty jobs, still fight to survive another day. She walked to the door, pausing to look back at the team. But as long as we're alive, we've got choices. We can decide who gets burned and who walks away. And that's enough for me. Crane watched her go, his expression unreadable. The team followed, one by one, leaving the battered warehouse and disappearing into the rain-soaked streets. In the shadows, nothing truly changes. The runners might win battles, expose secrets, and take their cuts. But the Corps endure, rebuilding from every blow like hydras with endless heads. The city hums on, its streets lit by flickering neon and its skies heavy with acid rain. But for the runners, survival is victory enough, because in the shadows every day alive is a fragging miracle. And so, the shadows remain, as they always will.